Bilingual web magazine. Dig Tokyo. Language and Education 13. Slacktivism in the Social Media Age. NHK E-Tele SNS Eigojutsu # International AIDS Day. Aired November 29th, 2018. 1. Prologue. For this show, our MC was Kato-san as always, accompanied by Gori-san. Our topic was #World AIDS Day, which takes place on December 1st. By some stroke of fate, every time Gori-san is on the show, our theme for the week is a serious or somber one, often tackling some social issue, whether it's Never Again, Implicit Bias, Independence Day, Where Were You, or Veterans Day. For a comedian like Gori-san, I imagine he would like to either be the straight man pointing out things that are silly, or the funny man trying to figure out the English language. But when we're talking about a serious disease, it becomes difficult to joke around or make light of things, and I could tell it was challenging for Gori-san to figure out how to react or what to say. Similarly, Sasaki Toshinao-san and I were having trouble deciding what to say to close out the show. Going back a bit in time to September, I had a chance to check out Okinawa Shinkigeki, a stage show produced by Gori-san at Lumineda Yoshimoto in Shinjuku. Apparently it was the 5th edition of the show, and Gori-san was touring it around Japan, Tokyo, Osaka, Naha, Ishigaki, as well as for the first time Hawaii. The main theme of the show was local Okinawa culture, but it also tackled the topic of Hawaiian immigrants and the current state of society and the world. There were half Japanese and quarter Japanese cast members, and transgender characters in the show, and it felt very much like Gori-san had taken a page from SNS Eigojutsu, where most of our shows seem to have an underlying theme of diversity and inclusion. When I got to speak to Gori-san later, he confirmed this to be true. Gori-san is also active as a movie director. His latest film is Senkotsu. Senkotsu is a tradition seen in parts of East Asia and certain remote Okinawan islands, and is where a dead body that has been buried is unearthed a few years later, and the bones of the deceased are washed, cleaned, and purified before being buried again. So it's always very interesting to hear Gori-san's thoughts on socially relevant hashtags like Where Were You and Veterans Day. Perhaps when we get better acquainted, I could ask him more in-depth questions. In any case, it's a wonder to me that he's able to take these serious themes we feature in our show and incorporate them skillfully into his own work. 2. Wearing a ribbon or retweeting is just the first step. For this episode, everybody on the show put on a red ribbon to show our support for those afflicted with HIV. Ribbons such as these are known as awareness ribbons, intended to raise awareness among the general public and spread a factually accurate understanding of a certain disease or social issue. Speaking only about HIV, when you look at how the number of patients diagnosed has declined over the years, it seems reasonable to interpret that as the ribbons having had some effect in addressing the HIV pandemic. On our show, we've featured similar social awareness campaigns, namely the Ice Bucket Challenge, which aimed to raise money for ALS research. That campaign went viral, reportedly raising a total of $115 million in donations. However, because these campaigns are specifically about spreading awareness, they have been criticized for the fact that they often capture the public's attention momentarily, only to quickly fade away soon thereafter. While they purportedly succeed, that does not necessarily mean they have led to concrete results. For patients and their families, it may seem like the participants of campaigns like these are merely doing it to feel better about themselves. In recent years, campaigns and movements like these have been referred to as Slacktivism, or clicktivism. A person who participates in these activities is known as a slacktivist, or alternatively, an armchair activist, because they often talk big from behind the safety of their computer screens, but have no real intention of stepping up and putting something on the line. These terms criticize actions such as wearing ribbons, clicking like, retweeting, and signing online petitions as easy ways to feel good about oneself. Attractive options, of course, as long as they don't take too much time and effort. With the spread of social media, awareness of social issues and movements can spread across the world in a heartbeat. There is no doubt that social media has made it easier than ever for people to join these movements. At the same time, it's important to remember that changing the world is no easy task, and it requires an often inconvenient amount of time, effort, and sacrifice. What's ironic is that in the war zone of the internet, spreading bad rumors and publicly flogging someone is accomplished on a daily basis with minimal effort. In that sense, the spread of the internet has made it more difficult for people to heed constructive criticism and be a force for positive change in the world. 3. My wardrobe this week. Black Vest by Kashiyama the Smart Tailor. Orange Contrast Color Shirt by Takashimaya. Brown Suit Jacket by Global Style. Khaki Suit Trousers by Global Style. Orange Socks by Tabio. Po Double Monk Strap Shoes by Parabud. Black Glasses by Zoff. 4. Epilogue. The word armchair used as an adjective has many uses. For example, someone who dishes out advice about mental disorders and emotional problems, despite having no professional training in psychology, is practicing armchair psychology. Similarly, someone who waxes philosophical and puts on an intellectual front is called an armchair philosopher. Armchair not only connotes a certain laziness, it also implies that someone has little intention of putting their money where their mouth is. That someone is a wannabe, or that someone is an amateur. Although the term is not used in a purely negative way, it is safe to assume that it is rarely, if ever, used as a compliment. The armchair has special meaning for American men. It is a symbol of a certain take on the American dream. Often on American TV shows, family living rooms have both a sofa and an armchair. The armchair is the designated seat of the man of the house, and only he has permission to sit in it. If an outsider were to waltz into the home and sit down in said armchair, it would be tantamount to a declaration of war. If the man of the house allows someone to sit in their armchair, it is because they are either in an incredibly good mood, or respect the person greatly, or looking to curry their favor. This armchair is often referred to as a throne, with reason. For an American man, the ideal way to spend a weekend is to sink into their throne while watching sports all day. In order to minimize the number of trips to the kitchen, some chairs are equipped with a built-in cooler or mini fridge inside or beneath the armrest. When I was growing up, it was common in American households for a man of the house to have his local friends from high school over on the weekend to watch the game. He would seat his friends on the sofa, tossing them cans of beer as needed, and have his wife serve up nachos and buffalo wings. All the while, the men would alternate cheering on and yelling at the TV, and the man of the house would survey his living room kingdom from his throne. Today, the armchair has migrated from in front of the TV to in front of the PC. And with the advent of the internet, many new despots are under the delusion that their living room kingdoms have expanded into every corner, technical field, and personal orifice in the virtual world. What a frightening world we now live in. Language and Education 13. Slacktivism in the Social Media Age. NHK E-Tele, SNS Eigojutsu, #InternationalAIDSDay. Aired November 29, 2018. www.digtokyo.jp